What up, and welcome to the Roundtable. I am your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry. What is going on today?
Hey, I'm always coming on here talking about the weather, and it's 70 degrees today. I played golf 2 times in the last couple weeks in March in Montana.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm feeling good.
You should be. You should be. A lot better weather by you than over by me, that's for sure. Today was a little cold. It's like 50 degrees. The sun was not out. Brutal.
But yeah, the biggest thing happening. How are people in Brooklyn and New York? I guess were at, with the vaccine mandate being lifted. As far as as people jacked up about the Nets, or does nobody cares?
People like by me, so I live like right by the Barclays Center. There's a lot of buzz around the Nets. It's easy because there's like games always by there, right? And so you get the energy, but people are pretty excited about it. I think now it's getting closer to the season. It's or closer to playoffs. People are picking up this little bit of the steam, but it's not like the Knicks. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's not like the Knicks or the Yankees.
Well, it's gonna be real awkward when the Mets and the Nets are running the city here for the
I
next
know.
5 years.
I know. That's probably like the old school New Yorkers like worst nightmare. They're like, oh God.
Yeah, I could see that.
Well, Tyson, we have a ton to get to today, my man. I mean, we're going to be talking NFL. We have to. It's been the craziest NFL offseason ever. So we have to get to that. And then we're going to close. Well, of course, it's still March Madness. I know we have a little hiatus. And like you said, Tyson, after the first weekend, the interest kind of wanes a bit. But we love this shit. We're going to continue to break it down. We're going to go Sweet 16, look ahead. We're going to give our gambling picks. And we're going to kind of give you a broader sense of where we're at right now in the tournament. But right now, we got to start with the NFL and the craziest NFL offseason ever. And I'm going to say that with no hyperbole. This is straight facts. You have all this sorts of QB movement that we will break down. You have the greatest NFL player retiring and then coming back for another year. You have star NFL receivers getting traded, cap moves. It's been insane. What has been your general thought process? You've been following along with this. I mean, I know it's crazy, but why is it this way?
Well, I think to just point out how crazy it is, 9 Pro Bowlers so far have been moved in the offseason, and that's not counting, guys that these are guys fresh off the Pro Bowl, not somebody who made it 2 years ago. It's star players are switching teams here at like a pretty crazy rate, but I mean, legal tampering's got to be like the greatest business move in like the history of pro sports. I don't know what the amount of money that the NFL's generated off of clicks for shit that doesn't even technically hasn't even happened yet, quote unquote, right? It's like that the dominoes, like normally the Russell Wilson trade would be the biggest thing. Like all offseason last year, we talked about Matt Stafford because that was like what there was to talk about. The Russell Wilson trade feels like a lifetime ago.
Oh my God.
And that would have been the second, maybe either the biggest or second biggest thing that happened a year ago. And now that's Chandler Jones going to the Vegas Raiders was like reported by people in Las Vegas and Arizona. Crazy.
It is crazy. And especially when you consider like the names that have been moved too. Like you mentioned, we just like, oh, Russell Wilson, the Broncos afterthought. Like Russell Wilson's like, dude, he's exactly what the Broncos have been searching for since Peyton Manning retired. Like that's a huge trade. And of course we have the Tyreek Hill trade today. That's huge. Davonte Adams, like you mentioned, that seems like an afterthought now. It's like, dude, this guy was Aaron Rodgers, probably the best receiver he's ever played with. They just traded him to the Raiders, who have been in a massive need of getting a number one receiver, and that's just kind of like, Davante Adams got traded just because there's been so much shit going on, so much crazy stuff happening in the NFL. It's like people can't wrap their head around it. I mean, Von Miller, he got a huge deal from the Bills. People, I bet you, if you ask them right now, they're like, Von Miller's on the Bills, like just crazy stuff going on. And of course, Tyson, our Eagles have been a little
Hassan Reddick, baby.
Hassan Reddick, big one, Philly guy, Temple guy. They've been a little lethargic, but you know what? We'll have faith in the draft this year. I think that's where we're at.
It's just it's absolutely insane that like we were just kids when Christian Kirk was wildly overpaid. And that was 2 weeks ago. Nobody's talking about Jacksonville being stupid now. It's like, come on.
They're probably happy about that. They're like, oh God, look what the Dolphins did. Thank God it's another Florida idiot team.
Well, yeah, because they would have probably sent 101 and Trevor over for one of these wideouts.
Yeah. Just a lot of stuff to get to, Tyson. So we got to start with the QBs. It's the NFL. It's the world. It's how the football world works. QB movement is going to lead and dominate headlines. So we're going to run through it here now. Honestly, we got to start here, I think, with Tom Brady coming back. So he's coming back, which completely changes the outlook of the NFC, I think. Unannounced his retirement, they kind of bring the band back together. They lost some pieces. Leonard Fournette resigns. One of their starting O-linemen, of course, now I forget his name. Now he retires. The other one goes up to the Bengals. I'm interested to see how they kind of restructure this thing, how if they draft, how they utilize their picks, and how they go about this offseason a little bit further. But they did lock up Chris Godwin, which is a big thing. But unequivocally getting Tom Brady back for the Bucs. Division favorites at minus 325 now, as they should be. I think for me, with how weak the NFC got, favorites in the NFC, especially with the subtraction of Davonte Adams in Green Bay. So that to me was the biggest quarterback move and probably the biggest storyline is Tom Brady back in the NFL for the Tampa Bay Bucs.
Well, I think it's just paying respect, really, to the you got to do it. Have you been leading shows with Tom Brady since we were in high school? So it just feels right. No, and I do agree. I think they got to be the favorites in the NFC because, like, they were already better than Green Bay, I think, a year ago. Green Bay just got rid of Davonte Adams. We've seen it takes Rodgers 2-3 years to develop that trust. And maybe it's because they've been drafting shitty wideouts. Maybe Garrett Wilson walks in the door and all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers can, not duplicate Davonte Adams, but there's a 100-catch, 1,000-yard guy right off rip. Well, that remains to be seen. I'm going to go and say no, that's not what's going to happen. The 49ers are a question mark, and they're in serious jeopardy of getting caught bag holding here with Jimmy Garoppolo with all this quarterback movement as well. So I think it has to be the Bucs, right? I mean, you run through all these divisions. Cowboys not really a threat. Packers not really a threat. Niners and Rams, the defending Super Bowl champion. I think the Rams have something to say, but it's a goat, man. And I think that we're going to talk a lot about wideout movement here on the show, but the Bucs have to be the happiest people in the world right now. The Chris Godwin contract they signed him to 2 weeks ago looks like peanuts now compared to what a lot of these guys are getting.
Chris Godwin's got to be so upset that he tore his knee because imagine what he would have gotten on the open market, especially after this started firing off. But you're right, man. Got to pay respects to Tom Brady. But another old savvy, man, Matt Ryan battled Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. Now he gets shipped out of a rebuilding Atlanta, goes up to Indianapolis to replace Carson Wentz, who we discussed is going to be Commander Carson over in Washington. Interesting outlook for the Colts here. I think first of all, fifth quarterback in 5 years is not what you want to be as a franchise. And it kind of goes back to what I said about Chris Ballard, where I think he's getting a little overrated at this point. It's kind of sneaky getting closer to what the Broncos have been. Really good roster, haven't been able to figure out a quarterback. I think what they're trying to do here is more of a stopgap with Matt Ryan and see if they can develop somebody. Maybe it's Sam Ehlinger, who they have on the bench, but let's compete while we have this roster now with a quarterback who they obviously think has more left in the tank. I'm actually inclined to agree with that thought process. I do think Matt Ryan has a lot left in the tank. I think the only problem I see with Matt Ryan for the Colts is he's not going to have weapons to really throw to. And I understand Michael Pittman is a good young receiver, but when you take away Pittman from what that receiving core is, who's also been known to be a little injury prone, that I think that's a below average skill group in the NFL. I think that'd make it a lot harder for Matt Ryan. They're going to have to draft receivers. I think this draft, that should be their target, get younger at that position, get a little faster, more explosive at that position. That should help Matt Ryan out. Does it take him to the next level in the AFC? To me, no. But I think it's a really good pickup for them after moving off of Carson Wentz to be like, hey, with Matt Ryan, we can still be competitive in this division and still use kind of our window here with a lot of these guys in the locker room, at least be competing for division titles and getting to the playoffs.
I hate this. I
You
hate
hate
this.
this move?
I hate this so much. Um, Everyone, first of all, yeah, they only gave up a third round pick. So in the market, the way that quarterbacks were being sold, they did well on that front. How is this going to be any different than? Are they going to be better or worse than the Phillip Rivers led Colts a couple years ago?
If they're better, that's what they're looking for, obviously. The
Right,
playoff team,
but
at least.
they're missing two cornerbacks, in my opinion. Another off-ball linebacker. They're missing some guys on the defensive front, and that offensive line that was so talented has lost guys, and guys are not the same as they were a couple years ago. So to me, you went out and got Matt Ryan so that you could win 10 games. When if you didn't have Matt Ryan and you're walking into a loaded draft class next year, like you just took yourself out of the running at a guy like Bryce Young, which maybe that's not the guy you want, but that trade chip is going to be infinitely more valuable than you might get a hang a division winner banner in your stadium. Big fucking deal. Because they're gonna go in the first round of the playoffs and in the AFC. Okay, they're in the AFC. Are they better than anybody in the AFC West?
No.
That's going to be who they play in the wild card round. Probably it seems like, right. That's if they win the division, and if they don't, they're fighting an uphill battle to get it. And I think this is, pride comes before the fall, and this is Chris Ballard is a genius, and he's the man, and he can sling on, and he is a good general manager. But it's okay to get fleeced sometimes. The best ones get fleeced. You lost bad on the Carson Wentz trade. Don't think, okay, well, I built this thing, and it was his fault that we didn't win. There's a whole lot of other Carson Wentz wasn't the reason you didn't win the Super Bowl last year. You wouldn't have won. The Bills are better than you everywhere but running back. And they had Josh Allen. And they couldn't even get out of the second round. And you look at this locker room and you go, we're one Matt Ryan away. Get the fuck out of here.
I think maybe, because we know Jim Irsay is very rational and thinks out a lot of stuff. I think maybe Chris Ballard might be starting to feel a little heat.
Probably.
I know the local media loves him because it's like, wow, he's way better than Ryan Grigson because he's nice to us. It's like, yeah, but I'm not saying Ryan Grigson's any better than Ballard. I think Ballard's a better general manager. There's starting to be a little tide turn there in Indianapolis. When you look at Chris Ballard and his track record, he might start to feel a little heat now. Like, hey, if something doesn't happen under my watch, I may be looking for another job here soon. So maybe that's why he's like, I can't just turn over the keys to Ellinger because if this thing goes off the rails, we know Jim Irsay is very rational, and I'm going to be here for a while. I don't think he thinks that.
And I think that's the same thing with Frank Reich, the head coach.
Yeah.
I think he's a media darling and a great football mind and all that good stuff. But if you don't win, you don't get to keep your job unless you coach the Vikings. Like, those are the rules.
Yeah, exactly. You might be looking for a new job, Frank Reich, if it doesn't go well. You're right. Obviously the big one, Desean Watson, man. Finally out of Houston. Houston finally got rid of him after the legality issues seemed to work themselves out on some level, at least enough for a team to pull the trigger on trading for him. Signs a massive, massive deal. I think he's the highest paid quarterback guaranteed money ever, or per year basis ever, like something insane, all guaranteed from Jimmy Haslam and the Browns. If it's all worked out, legality, NFL doesn't take action on Desean Watson, he's able to play. This is a massive upgrade for them at the quarterback spot over Baker Mayfield. This turns them to an elite contender immediately. I get why, if you're the Browns, you pull the trigger on this and just say, hey, it checked out in the legal system. If he has to be suspended for 4 games by Goodell for whatever he considers that, I forget what the actual term is, whatever nonsense that he makes up.
Disrespecting the shield.
Yeah, exactly. Might as well be. If he has to sit 4 games, we can handle that. It's a longer season now.
It's got to be 8.
We can do it.
Like, it's got to be more than 4, but you never know.
But you never know. This is a huge trade. I mean, considering where they're at in that division, you look around and they're like, if we don't make this trade, we're going to be clearly behind the Bengals as long as Joe Burrow's there. With Baker Mayfield, they'd be clearly behind the Ravens. We got to go do something. And the Steelers are now holding the bag. Now they have the least talented quarterback in Mitchell Trubisky. Browns are right there again. I think all things considered, who's in their prime, and if you're playing who I'd want, I want Deshaun Watson over Lamar Jackson right now. So it puts him in the second spot in quarterback talent in that division. That's a big get for the Browns. I can understand why they made that trade and went all in on Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I mean, I understand from the football perspective why they would go do that. I mean, they finally get, the number one pick in a quarterback heavy draft class, and they get the wrong one, right? They're like, you wanted Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, who, by the way, were nobody else's favorites, coming out. So people were like, oh, of course these guys suck. Everybody loved Baker. Everybody was all over Baker. You can't fault the Browns for that. Good on them for recognizing their mistake.
Yeah, it's fair.
But another one that I do want to point out with this whole deal, and I'll get into the Deshaun stuff, but every team that went after Deshaun Watson that didn't get Deshaun, and even the one that did, pissed off their starting quarterback. Like, this was the domino that took over the NFL. Really, this is why Matt Ryan is a Colt, right? Everybody outside of like Philadelphia, outside of Jalen Hurts, seems to be the only one that didn't take this like ultra personal. Whether that's an indictment on Watson's ability or the fragility of NFL egos or whatever. That's something the NFL teams, like, you have to be careful, because Matt Ryan just spent 16 years. He's the best quarterback in the history of Atlanta, including Michael Vick. He might be the best player they've ever had. And he's in a new uniform now. So I thought that was interesting how people were fighting over themselves to get this guy, but they had to do it because, like you said, it's Burrow and it's Lamar, and you can either stay the Browns or you can keep taking swings, and they had to take the swing after getting Cooper, because anybody with half a brain knew that them going out and acquiring Amari Cooper meant that something was coming.
Yep.
At quarterback. So, like, to think they were like, well, Odell and Jarvis didn't work, Baker's going to figure it out with Amari. Amari would have quit after like game 4. He would have walked out of there. I don't know how I feel about the Browns team yet. I'm going to have to see him live in action. It's been too long since I've watch Deshaun Watson, and we're going to be looking, I think, if you get to another 8 games, it's a year and a half, 2 years since we've seen this guy throw the football. Can Jacoby Brissett keep you in playoff contention for the first half of the year is the big question.
It's tough. It's especially because we don't know how Goodell's going to come down in this thing. So something to keep in mind there. Tyson, I feel like I'm missing something, man. There's been so much. With quarterback movement, I mean, we already discussed Russell Wilson, already discussed Wentz.
Jameis signed with the Colts.
Back. Oh, Jameis back in the Saints. That doesn't do too much for me. I honestly expected that. Sean Payton's not there, so that does worry me, especially because Dennis Allen's not an offensive mind. How does that offense look? How does that team look without Sean Payton? And honestly, how does Jameis look coming off of an injury and without Sean Payton really kind of got him back into being an NFL caliber starting quarterback? I'm confused on how that offense is going to look. It's got to be something I see in action, but honestly, for me, when I look at that division, it's really who's playing for second, because I think the Bucs are just so much better. So I don't think in the grand scheme of things that matters. I think Jameis is going to be there to basically be your quarterback until the Saints can go be aggressive and get somebody else.
Mariota to the Falcons.
What do you think of that one? I'm curious your thoughts.
There was a lot of buzz around, I guess, around the NFL, just from what I was reading for the last year and a half, that he was going to get a shot somewhere. It was just, who's going to be the ones to give him a shot. And I think Atlanta's perfect, because I don't think there's any expectation, right? I mean, talk about a below average skill position group. It is Kyle Pitts, who should theoretically take a jump his second year. We think he'll be better. He was really good as a rookie. And then it's like Cordero Patterson, Mike Davis. Like, he's going to have nobody to throw the ball to, but I think that's going to be fine, because I think this, again, I mention Ben Simmons all the time on this podcast, but like, sometimes it's okay to be on somewhere where nobody else is watching and figure it out, because if he puts together a 3,500-yard season with, he throws 10 picks or less, and he runs for another 600 yards, and he gets in the end zone a bunch, both through the air and on the ground, then maybe somebody like Tennessee a year from now, if Tannehill is bad and they don't want to pay the premium to go get a Deshaun Watson, then Mariota again gets traded for a third or something, so he can play his way into a new job, which I don't think there's many other spots to do that. I know that everyone wants to see Baker Mayfield go to the Seahawks right now too. And I don't like that at all for Seattle.
What do
You think that this
Go
is
ahead.
going to be a Brock Osweiler situation where a pick has to be attached?
Oh,
He's
man,
not that bad.
He's not that bad, but like if
He's
you're
bad.
Seattle, don't you want to be like bad?
Yes.
Like so you're right. Like everybody wants to see Baker play because I think they like him. The reality is, I think Baker thinks he's a lot better than how everybody else views him, which we've been saying on the show, and everybody thought we were crazy until you're like, oh, Baker actually sucks. It's like, yeah, well, he does. We've been telling you that. I think he looked at it like, everybody, I'm gonna have a market outside this place. Like, look how good I am. It's like, dude, the reality is, have you seen the quarterbacks in the NFL?
Carolina's not even going after you, brother. They got
they're
PJ
not going
Walker.
after you, oh man. So you got Sam Darnold, who's I think was way worse than Baker Mayfield. I don't like Baker. I think he sucks, and that's how much I think Sam Darnold sucks. Like he's terrible.
Darnold's horrible in silence. Baker's in every other commercial, which is
and he's throwing fits in the press conference. He looks pissed and he's got a chip on his shoulder. It's like, dude, you got to be good first.
I would have liked him to end up in Atlanta, but I like if he goes anywhere, I want it to be again somewhere where it's going to be low pressure, low profile. See if he can build himself back up because he's not. He wanted to be Brett Favre and Joe Namath so bad, and he's not as good as those guys, but it's just not the personality. Like he was the funny guy in his 7-person friend group for his whole life.
Right.
And then he went and he became BMOC on these college. Everyone thinks he's hilarious. He's the #1 draft pick. Everyone loves me. And then you opened your mouth in front of a bunch of microphones and people are like, oh, this is not, the scripts you were reading for your commercials. I don't like this guy very much at all. We see it all the time, right? I mean, these guys occasionally are assholes. Baker seems like an asshole, but it's not like he can go back up Tom Brady, or he's not going to go like nobody's going to bring you in. That's too high profile of a backup for a lot of these situations. So I think, it's going to be weird because the Browns are hamstrung now too because they can't complete this Deshaun trade without getting rid of Baker.
I wonder what it's going to be. I just don't know. Like, does he go down to Houston as a flop? Like, is he going to compete with Davis Mills? It seems like they like Davis Mills down in Houston. I just don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. That's a big piece that's still dangling out there when you talk about QB movement in the NFL. Is Baker Mayfield doesn't have a starting job, and it looks like he might have to be a backup for this season.
Oh man, if you would have asked me which quarterback was going to end up, like starting quarterback in that division was going to end up as a backup start the year, I would have guessed everybody on the Steelers.
Yeah, exactly.
not Baker Mayfield.
I know. I don't know why Carolina doesn't go after him either. I mean, come on. You want to? I mean, if he sucks, like, okay, then you're waiting for another pick. Like, that's it.
I think that there's a real chance that they grab. If the smoke of Malik Willis going #2 to the Lions is real, which I don't think it is. I think that's, hey, we'll take your quarterback if you don't come up here and get him. I think that's trade bait. But Kenny Pickett sitting there at 6. Matt Corral at 6. Carolina might be one of those teams. They've shown they'll reach on guys in the past, and they don't care about positional value the way that they probably should. So there's a chance here that they end up with a project quarterback going into next year too.
Man, leaving Baker just kind of sitting out there. Maybe he takes a backup role. All right, Tyson, let's put a bow on this thing. Let's go through it. Most surprising move out of the QBs that when you saw it come across, you're like, what the hell is this?
I think the Desean to the Browns surprised me the most because he was like he ruled them out the night before, and he was down to Atlanta. And who was it? It was Atlanta and New Orleans.
Atlanta and New Orleans.
That he was reportedly down to, and then the Browns were like, "Hey, here's $230 million guaranteed," and he waived no call just like that. So that one was like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, it was so weird. Like, I don't know how he got it in his mind that he wanted to take over in Cleveland.
$230 million did it.
But didn't he have to decide to go there before, or was that something? I don't understand. Like, oh, I got to waive your no trade contract or no trade clause. And then Jimmy Haslam calls me. He's like, we're willing to offer you this much. He's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, is that how that worked? Or is he
That's
just
what
like,
I think happened.
actually,
That's
that
what
they're a way better roster than the Saints and the Falcons? It's like, yeah, no shit, dude. Why would you want to go in there in the first place?
yeah, they should have been high on his list, but Cleveland does funky things to quarterbacks, so we'll see.
That is true. It's something. I don't know if it's something about the water that happens there, but yeah, the QB's market there is woof. Mine's going back a little bit. Russell Wilson, the Broncos. That was shocking to me for two reasons, and from both angles. I didn't think the Seahawks would actually be crazy enough to trade Russell Wilson. I mean, if you're going to choose between Carroll and Russell Wilson, obviously you pick your quarterback who's won you Super Bowl and the coach who seems like he's on the back nine of his coaching career. So that was shocking to me. And then it was shocking and surprising that the Broncos actually swung and got a quarterback that they needed to get. Like they've been whiffing and whiffing and whiffing, and they finally landed one, and it was Russell Wilson who they landed. Like that's a home run. So that was most surprising to me is the Denver Broncos' ability to be aggressive, go get Russell Wilson and bring him into a division that now makes it probably the most competitive of all time. For you, Tyson, most impactful of these quarterbacks coming back in this quarterback movement that we've seen?
Well, again, I think Deshaun's probably the most impactful, but I think that's super easy. I mean, he's just going to make them into. They went from like, can they make the playoffs to Super Bowl contender? So I think that one's a huge deal. But I think that Aaron Rodgers staying in Green Bay, like I think that's what made everybody lose their shit. Or maybe it's the Wilson trade. Just the beginning of the quarterback market here for the offseason, I think set the tone for everything that we were going to get, because I'm of the belief that if Rodgers would have got moved, things would be moving a lot slower right now in the NFL. But when he said, okay, I'm staying, then all of a sudden, like Russell Wilson was traded half an hour later. Carson Wentz is on the move. The Deshaun trial or whatever ended on Friday. So that whole thing was already going to be set. But just everybody was holding their breath waiting for Aaron Rodgers. And as soon as he went, it was like boom, 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 boom. And it led to both the huge wide receiver trades.
That's absolutely. Aaron Rodgers. No, you're giving him a lot of credit here. I think he would like that. You're stroking his ego. Now everybody's thinking about, Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, you're telling me that all this stuff in the NFL happened because Aaron Rodgers. I think he'd like that a lot.
I'm trying to get that Rodgers rate, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Going to bring that to State Farm. For me, it's got to be Tom Brady returning. And I said that kind of off the jump a little bit. Most impactful because it takes the Bucks, who are kind of in no man's land. We didn't know what they're going to look like. Are they going to run out Kyle Trask? Like, geez. I mean, are we taking the Panthers to win this division, really? And then now Brady's back. Huge favorites in their division. I think the best team in the NFC in a division or in a conference where quarterbacks are fleeing and going to the other side. This paves the way for a Brady's Rodgers rematch where you said it. You think the Bucks are a better team. This is huge for the entire NFC. I think there's a clear 1-2 with Packers. With a three-headed monster because the Rams are sitting out there still. With those three kind of just power hungry and are going to be heavy from the top, and then everybody else is going to be vying for playoff position. So that's a big, most impactful thing, I think, with Tom Brady coming back out of retirement. Also, I'd love it. So I had to add that in there. Tyson, for you, biggest losers in all of this? I mean, you can get a couple. You can get one big one.
Well, I think the biggest loser, the more I thought about this, is DJ Moore in Carolina. The all-world 24-year-old wide receiver, like just turned 24. He's finishing with 1,000 yards, 100 catches every year with the ghost of Cam Newton and PJ Walker and Sam Darnold. And then the organization wants to reward you with a contract extension and the promise of a new quarterback. So you sign the contract extension, and then they don't get you a new quarterback. And then a week later, your contract now you're almost the exact same percentage-wise as you were before when you were trying to get to the tip top because that's what you deserve. This dude's had a hell of a couple 2 weeks here. And I mean, it's going under the radar. This guy, he's wearing the right uniform to go down in the Steve Smith trajectory that he kind of has going on right now, where he's going to be Mr. Pro Bowl, but that's because he's never playing deep enough in the playoffs to say, no, I don't want to go.
That's a funny angle. I like that a lot. Along the lines with you, the Carolina Panthers and David Tepper, the owner, these are the biggest losers, man. I mean,
Big.
what the hell are you doing in this market? How do you not be aggressive and go out and get somebody? Like, you let the Broncos outbid you. Like, you have better picks than the Broncos did. How did you not go get Russell Wilson? Like, trades Christian McCaffrey in a 3 first-round, 17, 20 first-round picks to go get Russell Wilson. Like, I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's so bad. And then on top of it, too, like, to just, now be left looking, it's Jimmy Garoppolo or drafting a quarterback in the top 10 from what is prospect-wise the worst quarterback draft since E.J. Manuel's class, right? It's like, you had the world at your feet at the beginning of free agency, and now it's like you got 2 quarters or a 50-cent piece here, and everybody else just walked out of the bank with a couple dollars.
My question for the Panthers is, if David Tepper's true to his word about giving Matt Rule time on this contract instead of like, oh, another bad year hot seat. It's like, well, you gave him 6 years for a reason. I think maybe you should kind of see it through. That's just how I look at things like this. But, it's the NFL, so crazy shit happens all the time where people like, oh, God, one bad year, we should fire that coach, and he sucks all of a sudden. It's like, dude, just let it play out a little bit. Is Matt Rule and the GM comfortable enough to take one of these project guys, or are they like, go get me Jimmy Garoppolo so we can compete in this division? I think if he's smart, knowing how this business works, I think he's pounding the table to go get Garoppolo. If David Tepper's patient and has told Matt Rule, no matter what happens, you're going to be our coach, I think then we may see them take a project quarterback like you mentioned before, and whether it is a Malik Willis if he falls, or if you go get a Matt Corral who could be explosive given the right opportunity. If not, then I think if you do fire the head coach and Matt Rule, now you're right back to where you started. You're rebuilding. You're trying to find another coach after Rivera. Kind of a mess. You don't really know what you have, and you're going to be spinning your wheels in that division where if you get a quarterback now, if you have a coach set up for when Brady eventually does retire, you might be leading in that division when you look around at the rest of the teams there.
Well, I think that the general manager and Matt Rule are probably pounding the table to take the project quarterback so that they can keep their jobs for a couple more years, because I loved the Matt Rule hire when it first happened. And I've seen a couple shades of like, okay, this thing could work. But I've seen overwhelming evidence of like, this guy he's in so far over his head, right now with this roster and the way he's trying to run things. Like, there's a reason that the first time a lot of these college guys come up to the pros doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's not to say that the second time won't work if there is a second time, but it's a completely different thing. And then, on top of it, last year they set themselves back so far by being like, we are one Sam Darnold away. And it's like, no, now you're farther away. Now you have an untradeable asset. You have less picks. Whatever the smart thing is to do, just bet Carolina to go against that.
It seems like that's the thing, unfortunately. And I don't know how they got to that point, but maybe it started with Gettleman, who's just an idiot. But
it's when Cam didn't try to recover that fumble.
That's exactly. I think that was the curse. Like he disrespected the football gods, and he just like went to that franchise. I think that's what it was. All right, enough of the QBs, Tyson. They get enough attention as it is. Like let's talk about the guys who hate attention, who hate the look at me attitude. Let's talk about wide receivers, because we know they put their head down, they grind, they hate the diva mentality, they hate attention. So we might as well highlight them, because I know they don't want this. So we got to talk about what's going on. But we mentioned something before we got on here about kind of some of the money, some of the draft capital that was given up for wide receivers. And you had a philosophy about it. I want you to share that with the audience, just like how you were shocked that for a league that's devalued the receiver position over the course of time, not quite like the running back devaluation, but receivers have been devalued because there's so many good ones now. For all of a sudden, so much draft capital to be given up and such massive contracts to be given out. It's a weird reverse of attitude that we've seen here, Tyson. I want to get your thoughts on that.
I think it's ridiculous for a wideout to make $30 million annually per year, on a contract. Like 4 years, $120 million is like a lot of money to be paying a defensive end, and he's going to impact your winning, a lot more. It's just, to me, it's like the Tyreek Hill one's a good example. $72 million guaranteed, 4 years for 120 if he hits all of his milestones. He's Tyreek Hill. There's a good chance, that he stays Tyreek Hill. There's also the facts that you have to live with, that he's a 28-year-old undersized guy who relies on speed that you just gave up 5 picks for and then signed to a massive contract when year over year these guys come into the NFL and they don't have for every Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, there's a Jalen Reagor. But there's so many guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, people like that are just in the middle that you can find in the 4th round and you can pay $3 million. You think Tyreek Hill realistically, like estimated wins added? I know WAR's not really a football stat, but the Chiefs dynasty wasn't dynasty loosely here. Mm-hmm. But as far as the AFC goes, they weren't crushing people because of Tyreek Hill. His skill and his speed is a huge factor. But like, they paid Mahomes so much that they couldn't afford to keep Hill. And I think that should tell other teams, hey, like I'm Miami. Wait a minute. So if I go out and I pay this guy a bunch of money, then I won't be able to afford my quarterback? Or like, how's this thing going to work in the long run? Now you're tied to what will be a 30-year-old Tyreek Hill, Tua coming up on his 5th-year option there. You have so much money now tied into the wideout room with Waddle to, like, you franchise take a second. It's just like, this is silly. It's silly. You're hamstringing yourself. If everybody wants to be the Rams because the Rams went out and they bought their way to the Super Bowl and nobody else had ever done it before. Mm-hmm. There's a reason that it's worked once. It's hard to do. And they went out and they got, for every Odell Beckham that they signed, they got a Von Miller, right? Or they brought an Eric Weddle back. It wasn't like getting Matt Stafford obviously helped a ton, but there were so many other little moves that they made along the way. But everyone's just focused on, okay, like Miami, can we build a track team? How's that going to work if your quarterback's going to sling it 15 yards down the field?
There'll be no Tua slander on this program.
It was easy watching him throw ducks while Tyreek 60 yards down the field for $120 million.
Hey, he may throw it short, but what he does not do is throw ducks. That's true. He's not Peyton Manning. He throws a tight spiral, for God's sake.
Two side squad,
baby. I'm a part of it. I'm leading it now. Sorry, Big Cat. I'm taking over. So let's dive in there then. I mean, so this Tyreek Hill thing.
This one irks me, man.
It irks you. And I'm curious your thoughts, your response to my thought here. Obviously, Dolphins get Tyreek Hill. What Kansas City gets back for that trade is upcoming in this year's draft, 2022. They get the 1st-round pick and the 2nd-round pick from Miami, along with the 4th-round pick. And then in the following year's draft, 2023, Kansas City will get the 4th and 6th-round picks from Miami. So 5 picks given up for Tyreek Hill. And obviously, as Tyson laid out, the contract that Miami gave to Tyreek Hill. I actually like this move for the Dolphins. The money-wise, that's tough for me to sell on. I kind of agree with you in terms of that aspect. But when you have Tua on this contract that he's on right now, the rookie deal, it allows you to be flexible, especially when you have a Jalen Waddle also on a rookie deal who that you already know is awesome. So they can kind of look at this like, all right, we have one guy at least in Waddle who we know is going to be here. We'll probably have to pay him down the road. Let's see what we have in Tua, man. Like, we just got Taron Armstrong to be an offensive tackle here, kind of booster that line. Let's go get some weapons so that if Tua isn't the guy, because as you said to me, there's no more excuses for my guy Tua Tagovailoa. He's got to perform this year because you got Chase Edmonds at running back. You got pieces. You got these guys around him now that if he doesn't perform, okay, for the Dolphins, now we can move on from Tua and we can bring somebody in, whether it's a Garoppolo or something, or maybe we go draft another rookie next year. If you kind of stink in that loaded QB class, we can just keep this thing going on a rookie contract. That's where I kind of look at it like, okay, you make this move. You don't really tie up your cap space too much here. See what you have in Tua. Make its decision if it works or not. And if it doesn't, then you can go move on and you already have pieces in place to build to at least insert a quarterback in.
See, and I understand that, but this feels different than what Buffalo did with Josh Allen when they went and got Stephon Diggs, because really that's the only example I can think of a team, quote
Mhm.
unquote, taking a chance on a young guy. But Josh Allen had shown so many plus signs on film that it was like, okay, go get this guy as number one. Tua has played really well, and I'm not a Tua hater. It's just fun to rile you up. But again, it's like, is this offense going to be a lot of yards after the catch like we expect? Because Tyreek's average depth of target was down last year, and he is obviously pretty nasty with the ball in space. But do you pay a run after the catch wide receiver $120 million? Or do you pay somebody to go break the fucking game
Mhm.
$120 million when you really probably shouldn't do that either? But he's 20. Nobody's ever been that fast for that long and played a contact sport like this and just been able, like, knock on wood, obviously. I'm not cheering for the guy to get injured, but that's a real concern here because I said to you before the podcast, Davonte Adams is going to be able to win at the line of scrimmage until the dude's 50 years old. The things that make Tyreek Hill special are not things that like translate well to old age, right? Like,
Right.
if he loses one step, he goes from top 5 wide receiver in the league to, like, I don't know, 35th. Like, he falls so much because outside of athleticism, like, he has good hands, but his routes are really good because he's so fast.
Mhm.
Like, everything in his game is predicated on the quick twitch and the speed, and it just feels weird to be paying a guy $30 million at 31 to be doing those things.
Now, another big one, Davonte Adams exchanging his Green Bay jersey, going out to Vegas, putting on a Raiders jersey, hanging out with his old college quarterback, Derek Carr. Huge grown-up big boy move for the Raiders. I mean, if we're going to look at it this way, you brought in some big boys now in this organization, bringing over old Patriots guys. You got Josh McDaniels running the show here. This was an adult move. Let's be aggressive. Let's give up picks. Let's go get somebody who we know is going to be here and going to be an elite guy here. Really good locker room leader as well, Davonte Adams. Trade-wise, Packers received the first and second round picks of the Raiders in this upcoming draft. When you look at that compensation,
They got to
like,
be so pissed.
But as you mentioned too, with what Tyreek Hill got, I mean, Davonte Adams signed for a lot of money as well, with 5 years, $143 million, I believe. So a big deal for them as well. You like this a little bit more deal wise, like you already weighed out, because he can win at the line. He can do so many things that doesn't just rely on pure speed. A little more of a Larry Fitzgerald type in a way, where really good route runner because he's crisp and committed and just a consummate pro, whereas Tyreek Hill, not saying he's not, but like you already laid out, uses athleticism. That's really the separator between him and other people on the field. I love this is a home run trade for the Raiders. And when you look at it, it's kind of weird for the Packers to be here. Davonte Adams wasn't going to put on the Packers uniform. Blatantly obvious coming out that he was not going to re-sign there. Felt his time was up there, wanted to move on, and might as well go to his childhood favorite team in the Oakland, now Las Vegas Raiders, and pair up with Derek Carr, who's his boy from college. So Packers got what they could back, man. First and second round. I think that's good draft capital for this. Obviously, you see what Tyreek Hill went for. You want something more, but Dolphins were obviously desperate. That's why they gave up that much for Tyreek Hill, kind of outbid the Jets a little bit. And I think the Raiders, I wouldn't be shocked if it was the other way around. If you look at those deals, like, oh, the Raiders gave up 17 picks to go get this. And okay, they just gave up first and second, got Davonte Adams in here, and somebody who can be an impactful player immediately for them in a division that's difficult and tough. Raiders maybe starting to turn over a new leaf, Tyson. I know it's crazy to say.
I'll explain it as simply as I can for the reason why I'm so high on this and so low on the Tyreek trade. And to be clear, Tyreek's going to make the Dolphins better, but it's like, I think it's marginally compared to what Davante is going to bring to the Raiders. When you have your quarterback first, you can go out and make these kind of moves. When you still have question marks at quarterback, you can't go do these things. The Raiders know they're going to rock with Derek Carr. He's about to sign an extension. He's going to be your quarterback for 5 years. You have most of your pieces on defense, at least the big important ones, you have locked down now going forward here. You have offensive linemen both on rookie deals and bargain free agents that you've brought in. You have a talented backfield, and you have one of the better tight ends in the NFL. The thing you were missing was a true alpha wide receiver, and it's been painfully obvious for 2 years. And so you go out and you get the alpha wide receiver in the NFL. And yeah, they had to pay him a ton of money, and it's never good. And I've explained that, how I feel about that. This one is like, fuck it. Like, we're in the AFC. We have to, like, again, we talked about it with the Broncos, but it's like, if you're sitting here in this division and it's like, okay, we can either be bugs on the windshield or we can try to race these guys. And I applaud Oakland or Vegas for going out and getting him. And I honestly think it makes them, post Tyreek Hill trade, I think them and the Chargers are staring the Chiefs at least directly in the eyeballs.
I think you're right. I think it's a lot closer than people think, or at least want to admit. But you said it exceptionally well, man. I mean, growing up in the room, big boy, go get your number one. And if you listen to Davonte Adams, he had a great quote when introduced for the Raiders, just about taking everything one game at a time and how the work and preparation he brings. That's something that you listen to as a general manager and a president and even the owner of the team, Mark Davis, for somebody to come to Las Vegas, because especially with the whole thing that happened with Henry Ruggs last year, we don't need to hash that out again, but to hear what's going to be your star player approach the game of football this way and approach being a leader the way he was breaking down in that press conference, I highly recommend going to listen to that. That's got to make you confident and feeling good about where this program and where this franchise is going, which is the thing to me. Because the Raiders have been a joke for a long time in the inner circle, just like the Browns, just like the Jags, just like the Jets, where you look at those teams, you're like, that franchise, something bad happens, like, well, of course it's them. Whereas it's another successful team, the Patriots, and they were bad last year. It's like, well, they'll get it figured out because you give them the benefit of the doubt. Raiders are like, we're tired of being the butt of the joke. We're going to go get grown-ups involved, which they thought they did with Gruden. Clearly that wasn't the case.
And
Mayock missed on those. So they pivoted again. Okay, let's go bring over elite people from the Patriots organization. Now let's go be adults in the room, get adults in the room. And I think this may be a turning point where they're going to be at least getting in the right direction in terms of somebody who can compete in their division and in the AFC.
And we will be taking apologies, email. You can leave it on Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Derek Carr is not as bad as some of you have been saying for the last 5 years. This dude has been playing his ass off, and I feel like we're the only people that notice. And I think that he's going to come out and, I'm talking 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns this year for Derek Carr.
Man.
I think this is the numbers he's been putting up with Bryan Edwards as like the guy in the X wideout role, and now you're going to tell me he's got Davonte Adams. Waller's going to lose his step. Kenyon Drake should be back, which I actually think is going to help this team. I think, I don't know how Josh McDaniels will use him, but he is a very talented pass catcher out of the backfield. I think that Oakland now, Vegas, has better skill position players than at any point in Derek Carr's career, and it's not even close.
I agree. And they have a draft that they can go out and do something as well. Good skill position draft. Tyson, to kind of close up this wide receiver movement before we get over into some movers and shakers and kind of wrap everything up that we've talked about, odds perspective-wise, Allen Robinson, rich keep getting richer with the Rams. He signs a 3-year deal worth $46.5 million. And Robert Woods, he gets traded to the Titans away from the Rams. All the Titans had to give up was a 2023 6th-round pick. Are you kidding me? What a fleece for that. But, I mean, if you're the Rams, honestly, like, you're going to get whatever you can back, and you got Allen Robinson, like, yeah, all right, take him. Allen Robinson's a huge pickup for the Rams, especially not knowing if Odell Beckham's going to be back or his future. They're less need, man. I mean, I know it was kind of easy, like, oh, the Rams are first-round picks. They don't have any. Ha-ha, but make fun of them. He's an idiot. They've done such a magnificent job with this cap space and just working things around and going to get elite players in this league and saying, why would I spend money on draft capital, or why would I care about draft capital when I know the players are already elite in this league and I can go get them?
They're just acquiring the proven talent, man. It feels a lot like they might have learned from somebody across the bridge over there. It feels like the Golden State management style we got going on. Allen Robinson and Matt Nagy owes Allen Robinson $60 million, do you think? Like, how much more realistically, if Allen, well, remains to be seen because he could Alshon Jeffrey disappear from the face of the planet. I don't think that he's gone. I think that it was a system and then lack of caring, honestly. And you never want to say who can blame him, but who could blame him? I don't know how he's going to be used in LA, and I'm fascinated. And then as far as Robert Woods, it's like, I think it's a win-win for both sides. He gets to go to where he wanted to. The Titans didn't give up a bunch for a guy coming off torn Achilles, I think it was. So if it doesn't work out, it's like, damn. But the Titans are the same team that have, like, with the Isaiah Stewart, or who did they draft in the first round that didn't even show up to play? So they're not, like, maybe they should be the ones following the Rams.
You talk about the Titans?
Here. Yeah.
The kid, the O-line from Georgia, who he played like 7 snaps. Like, honestly, the biggest bust in the first round history. Like, at least Jamarcus Russell played, for God's sake. He played 7 special team snaps and is out of the league. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, he retired. Like, yeah, I mean,
yeah, he retired. Yeah, he was forced to retire because he can't play.
Yeah, he is bad, but good for everybody, I think, involved. Agents got paid, wideouts got paid, teams got better.
That's for sure, Tyson. All right, let's wrap it up. A little movers and shakers action here. And what that is, for not aware, we're just going to run through some of the odds here just after these trades. This is from FanDuel Sportsbook, just giving you an idea on just where everything sits after some of these trades that happen. So right now in the AFC North division, Cleveland, after the Deshaun Watson trade, is the favorite, plus 185. Ravens behind them at plus 200. Bengals right behind them at plus 220. So about 20 cents separate those three. And then obviously Steelers are fourth at plus 850. Interesting there, the kind of Browns catapult over the Ravens. Bengals were in the Super Bowl last year. We're close to winning, third in that division. Very, very interesting, especially when you look at how good that offensive line has gotten for the Bengals this offseason. Just quick thoughts on that, Tyson, as you look at those odds.
I think that's a prisoner of the moment kind of deal right there. I mean, it won't happen, but really, you could sell me on it being plus 185, plus 185, plus one, like a 3-way tie here at the top. There's not this much. Like, if you're a Bengals guy, now's the time to go get them. You think they're going to win this division, then this is probably as big as it's going to get, barring, something crazy happening. And honestly, if you're a Ravens guy, I would wait, because I think they're going to nestle into third there. I think we're going to remember how good the Bengals are once football gets back to being played.
Is that your bold prediction there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of ties, Tyson, that you would have it. You said you'd have the AFC North. That there is a tie in the AFC South with the Titans and Colts for division odds here. Titans plus 120, Colts plus 120 after the Matt Ryan acquisition. Interesting there. I mean, are the Colts really better than the Titans, who were the 1 seed last year? Should have Derrick Henry back. That's some food for thought. And obviously Jacksonville is going to have a new coach who's not Urban Meyer, which is a plus. They're plus 600 and the Texans plus 2,600. I mean, wow. Talk about no respect. But interesting that those two were tied in the AFC South as we start kind of get out of March before the draft.
I think they both got a decent amount worse from a year ago. But wouldn't that, at least at this point, after the draft, and we'll see how things come together. But I would rather have the number 1 seed who got worse than the team who missed the playoffs and got worse. That seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still lean Titans there. I actually have a different pick for that division. That's going to be interesting as we get closer to.
You going with Dougie P, or you?
I'm going with Dougie P and Trevor Lawrence. Got to take a flyer on them. Another division winner, AFC East. Tyreek Hill trade. How's that shape up? Bills minus 180 favorite. That's tasty right there. Dolphins tied with the Patriots, both at plus 400 to finish second in the division, and Jets plus 2,000. Dolphins, are they on par with the Patriots? I kind of think they might be better than the Patriots with this roster.
I think they are too. Last year they were going to be better than the Patriots, and they weren't. But they weren't far out, and you could tell when they play each other. They're, it's the difference really came down to experience in big games, and the Miami players simply just had none. But yeah, this is Buffalo. I think that's the value of all these teams that you just gave out right there. I think this is minus about as good odds as you're going to. It's about best odds you're going to get on these guys. I think going forward for quite a while.
And then last one to wrap it up here, division-wise, Chiefs in the AFC West are still the favorite, plus 150, followed by the Chargers at plus 240, the Broncos led by Russell Wilson plus 280, and then now the Davonte Adams Raiders at plus 600. Without Tyreek Hill there, I'm a little shocked they didn't come back to earth a little bit, the Chiefs, and it's still a 90-cent difference between them and the Chargers, and the Broncos about $1.30 difference between them. I think it's a lot tighter than people think here. A lot short, should be a lot shorter than this. I'm surprised at this market that it hasn't pulled back a bit. I guess that's a respect for Mahomes and Reed, but I think there's a lot of value in this division.
Yeah, that's crazy. And just laughing to myself because a year ago we were like, this NFC West is stacked. And then if you compared, like, at least preseason, you showed like rosters, it's like, looked like we're talking the NFC West versus the NFC East last year with how good this AFC West is. This is crazy. Russell Wilson's plus 600 to win a division, and his team is stacked. That's nuts.
It's nuts. Absolutely nuts. All right, Tyson, that's a little bit of movers and shakers action for you out there. As we haven't even hit the draft yet, for Christ's sake. I mean, we're just getting free agency started. We're going to have more trickle down. We're going to have other players moving around. Like this, we had to talk about this, even though it's March, and we're going to close out with some college basketball. But I mean, the craziest NFL offseason ever, can say that with the utmost confidence.
Yeah, it's not even, like you said, the draft is at the end of next month. We're like a month away from when news is supposed to start hitting.
And so, little roadmap too. Obviously, Tyson and I are going to give you our draft stuff. I got to start breaking down quarterbacks now. I think if I'm looking at now, Willis is probably my number one QB in this draft class. I'm not sold on Pickett, but we'll dive into that further as we get closer to that time. But right now, Tyson, I know the NFL is that drunk girl at the bar, like, look at me, like, they want to steal all the attention. That's what they're doing right now. Let's bring it back to the wholesome, good girl that just is there to have a good time with her friends, and that's March Madness, baby. We're Sweet 16. What are we doing here?
You spend too much time in the bar, my man.
Hey, March is a big birthday month,
Oh, that was funny. No, I mean, shit though, to be honest, like it's nuts. Like this March Madness has been so far, the first two rounds, they're always good, but this was so far it's been a great tournament.
Yeah.
And it's like this is back burner stuff because of the way it's been treated.
And at least I feel like March Madness is getting more attention than the NBA right now, though, which is awesome to me.
Which, I agree, because like you can't make up this stuff. Like St. Peter's still being in the tournament is a much bigger, like the Suns beat the T-Wolves tonight, and nobody cares.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's the 70th game of the season or whatever. But like this is you go to work and people are talking about the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's run through it real quick. Maybe you haven't been following along as much, but you're like, oh yeah, I'll check it out. We start Thursday. We start tomorrow if you're listening, or today if you're listening today. It's going to be Thursday through Sunday. We go Sweet 16 through the Elite 8, and we'll set our Final Four on Sunday. Gonzaga, the number one overall seed, had a scare against Memphis. They're still in it. They'll face off against Arkansas. Hasn't been impressive there, but that's an interesting matchup there, Tyson, as we'll kind of look ahead with that a little bit. Texas Tech faces Duke. Really, really contrasting styles there. That might be a slugfest. North Carolina, who beat the number one seed in Baylor, they're going to go up against UCLA, who may be a little undermanned without Jaime Jaquez. He's going to be a game-time decision. Two interesting styles facing there, and two blue bloods of the sport. And then Purdue with their giant 7-footer and Jaden Ivey, who's going to be a freak in the NBA. They face off against who everybody thought was going to be here, the Cinderella story of St. Peter's, who knocked off Kentucky and Murray State, as they are the 15 seed, looking to be the first 15 seed ever to advance to an Elite 8. In the South, we have Arizona, who survived an overtime scare against TCU, facing off against the Bar Brawlers of Houston. That's going to be a fun one. You're going to have to tune into that. And then you got Villanova, who everybody thought was going to be here, right? Jay Wright and the boys just play fundamentals. Taking a Michigan team who surprised the tournament a little bit, making to a Sweet 16. So that's something to tune into there. Good big names. Kansas taking on Providence. Winner of this could win this region in the Midwest. It's a big test for Kansas, as Providence kind of been what everybody considers lucky, and they've whatever luck their way to this far. Well, they're a real team at this point in the Sweet 16. And then finally, down in the Midwest, you have Iowa State taking on Miami in a battle of 10 versus 11, who have taken out some pretty high seeds there. So exciting storylines here, Tyson. Give me some matchups that you're circling and you want to see.
Well, I do think that it's a cop-out, but Gonzaga, Arkansas, I think is going to be really fun. Arkansas has this reputation, and rightfully so, as a stifling defensive team, because for a lot of people, you only watch them play in March, and it's 2 Marches in a row that they've shown up, absolutely clamp people up. I think 48 points was what they just allowed in New Mexico, something like that.
Yeah, and that was a team who scored on UConn, who has a good defense.
Yeah, and so this is the defensive Arkansas versus the offensive heavy Gonzaga. Arkansas is like the definition of like a run and shoot football team. If Eric Musselman could have these guys get it up and down the court and score 200 points, that's what they prefer to do. That's how they prefer to play. It's a lot more. I just think people are going to be surprised, because I think Gonzaga is going to force them into a track meet, because they're so much better than really anybody that they've had to play all season. Arkansas. So I think Gonzaga's got the horses here to say, okay, score with us. And I think a lot of people are going to be shocked that Arkansas, if they're making shots, can score with anybody in the country. And that's something I'm actually really looking forward to.
Yeah, I think especially when you look at Arkansas, it's their path to get here. They probably should have lost to Vermont. It was a bar fight with New Mexico State. I mean, that game was ugly. And now they're here against a Gonzaga team who survived the scare against Memphis, and it doesn't look like they're going to match up well against them with sheer size. But what they can do is spread the floor out, maybe hit enough threes to stay in this, and hopefully slow down the perimeter of Gonzaga. That's really their secret sauce, is making sure guards don't hit threes. And if Timmy's going to beat you down low, well, that's 26, and maybe Chet will get you 17. But now you're looking at 43 points there compared to what could be 80 if the guards are just raining on you from three. So I think that's going to be a good one to watch, Tyson. Obviously, I'm going to be tuning in to Texas Tech Duke. I mean, I'm a Duke fan, so that's something. But for me, it's Arizona, Houston. That's going to be a slugfest. Here's the thing. Arizona looked vulnerable against TCU, and I think
where they look vulnerable?
Rebounding.
And what does Houston do better than anybody in the country?
Offensive rebounds. TCU had 18, Tyson. 18 offensive rebounds against Arizona, and Arizona has way better athletes than anybody on TCU. TCU has one NBA player, Mike Miles, the point guard. Arizona has like 4.
Yep.
Like, now you're going to bring in Houston, whose specialty is to be
glass eaters, man.
Glass eaters, push you around. And I mean, they were in literal MMA fight with Illinois. I mean, if you watch that game, holy smokes, it looked like a wrestling match, dominating Kofi Coburn,
who, by the way,
biggest guy in the tournament.
Kofi proved once and for all, and this is an aside, but the least impactful player on winning for being as like in all of high major basketball, this dude matters less to the bottom line of his team. For as good as he is, Kofi shows up, lose by 15. Kofi doesn't show up, lose by 15.
Well, that's only in the tournament, though, because I don't think they would be as successful as they're in the Big Ten without him, though, because Big Ten conference plays, you need a big man.
I lost money. I'm just frustrated.
It happens every year with Illinois. Happens every year. But that's I'm circling that game. You can't miss that one. I mean, I want to see if Arizona can compete on the glass with Houston. They're going to have to, or else they're going to be knocked out of this tournament, because Houston, man, if you thought TCU was tough, wait till you see the boys from Houston, the Houston Cougars. Like, they're going to be ready to play.
Yeah, and I just on that note, really one more that I think people need to start watching Miami, because they've been on at weird times in the tournament, I think, and the first round they were playing during like a bunch of marquee like blue blood games, so people weren't paying attention. You know, we got 5 screens up, so we're watching. And then in the last round, it was kind of like the game was never really close in a day full of really close games, but they're kicking people's ass. Like they're Jim Larinaga, first of all, is a college basketball Hall of Famer who deserves as much credit for in accolades or whatever you want to give this man, he deserves. And he's got these guys firing on all cylinders. And then on Iowa State's end, like 2-22 a year ago,
Yeah.
and you've won 2 games in the tournament.
Yeah.
This is Hallmark Channel movie stuff. I mean, this game is going to be really cool.
It is, and you mentioned it. I mean, shout out Jim Larrañaga. I mean, he did it with George Mason. Remember that run in 06? For all these out there, yeah, that Jim Larrañaga, he looks a little different now, a little more white hair than he did back then. But what he can do is coach, and he coached circles around Bruce Pearl. I mean, Auburn was confused.
Bad, man.
I mean, Jabari Smith, who could be the number 1 pick. I mean, he looked like he had no clue how to combat that defense. And you're right with Miami. I mean, their guard play is elite. They have every single person on that floor, including their big men, can handle the ball. It's like impossible to speed them up, impossible to get them out of their rhythm. And if Charlie Moore and Isaiah Wong, if they're going to make shots, if they're going to get downhill,
they win the tournament.
As you've seen, they can knock off anybody in this tournament, and they have with Auburn and beating USC too. Iowa State, I think it's a tough matchup for them. They beat LSU without a coach, and then they beat Wisconsin, who Johnny Davis playing on one leg, and Chucky Hepburn, the point guard, he rolled his ankle like 10 minutes in. I like Miami a lot in this one. I think the only thing maybe is that defense for Iowa State is really constricting. If they can slow down those guards, they might have a chance here, but you're not going to be able to pressure them. So I don't know how Iowa State wants to attack that, but you're not going to be able to speed that team up. I think if you try to press them like Auburn did, you may get run out of the gym.
And one thing about Miami is they lost 10 games, and 7 of them were by 1 possession. 3 of them were by 1 point. So I think the team's a lot better than – because the ACC is a little, top-heavy, to say the least, this season, I think. Mm-hmm. And people were focusing too much on Clemson and guys like that, oh, that's going to be my tournament. It's like Miami was right in front of you the whole time. And they were playing like this the whole time. Another team from the ACC that might have been right in front of you the whole time, your North Carolina Tar Heels.
Jeez.
They're just ripping people's heads up. I mean, they almost gave it away against Baylor, but this is the tournament of every year there's one big school that underperforms in the regular season that goes on a run. We can pencil in Syracuse or whoever to that spot normally. This year it's like half the Sweet 16. What is going on?
I think in terms of North Carolina, they hit their stride at the perfect moment, and that's a scary team. Yeah. Any team who can do that. And then you add in the talent that you have on that team, and Armando Bacot, who besides Oscar Tshiebwe, Kentucky, he's one of the leaders in double-doubles in the country. RJ Davis, the guard, has started hitting shots and starting to be a maestro. Caleb Love starting to hit shots. And you got Brady Manick, the transfer from Oklahoma, who every time he shoots a 3, it basically goes in. I mean, he is playing out of his mind right now. So that's a team clicking on all cylinders. My concern with them is they don't go to the bench a lot. So I don't know how those legs are going to be holed up if they can get past the UCLA team who's been here before. They're going to pressure you. And we saw what happened down the stretch when Baylor pressured North Carolina. It kind of fell apart a little bit. So I'm curious that matchup. It's kind of a contrast in styles, and a Mick Cronin UCLA team who wants to get in you, make you uncomfortable, and then go down on the offensive end and have your playmakers make plays. Where UNC, they want to spread you out and be flashy and bomb threes. So I'm curious about that game, mainly because I want to see UNC lose, but that's a good contrast of styles basketball wise.
All right, enough of the child's play. Can St. Peter's beat Purdue?
No. Purdue's too big. It's just too big, and I hate to say that. You're like, well, I beat Kentucky. It's like Oscar Tshiebwe's 6'8", 6'9". Like Zach Edey's 7'3". Like he's
and
huge.
Travion Williams.
And Travion Williams is like 6'9" and 270 pounds. Like kind of looks baby fattish, but it's college baby fat, man. Like he's a grown man in there. And then you have Jaden Ivey, who's going to be the best athlete anybody, and that includes Kentucky and Murray State. That's the best athlete any of those kids will ever see play on St. Peter's and they'll ever play against. I mean, that dude is a different animal, talking about bounce, athleticism, and just the other gear that he can reach. I would love if St. Peter's wins this game. That'd be sick. It'd be awesome. Purdue's too big, too physical, and they're going to roll by him.
Yeah, I just shout out to Shaheen Holloway for, putting this team together. It looks like every AAU gym you walked into. This is like They're all like 6'7". They all, everybody's dunking. But eventually you run into, the AAU team that travels all across the country. These are the bad boys from their region. This is Purdue's like, all right, we're top 10 in the world here. I've been a big fan of Purdue all year. Really, really hoping St. Peter's can get it done just because it's awesome. But like it's weird because they just kind of handled business against Murray State. They didn't feel like a 15 seed, but I talked myself into Oral Roberts doing that a year ago as well.
Right.
And that didn't end so well
No.
in this Sweet 16 here. So I don't think it's going to be a 30-point blowout or anything like that, but I think Purdue's probably going to cruise.
They'd be the first, as I said, no 15 seeds ever gotten past the Sweet 16 round. There's only been 2 in history who've ever gotten here before St. Peter's, Oral Roberts and Florida Gulf Coast. So, and we love that Dunk City team.
Hey,
then you have
rank
Oral
them
Roberts.
real fast. 1 to 3. Who's have been the most fun to watch? Got to be Dunk City 1.
Dunk City, Florida Gulf Coast. Probably the Oral Roberts team because A. Smith is just like bombing threes.
That's true.
This St. Peter's team, they just play good basketball. Like,
so
like Dunk
weird.
City, they were just like, these kids are that athletic, and like Oral Roberts, like A. Smith and O'Bannon are like, or O'Bannon are like sick. And then St. Peter's like, well, they pass the ball really well and they rebound. It's like, well, yeah, no wonder they beat Kentucky.
Right. No, yeah, I think that's the definitive ranking. That's our first, I think we're the first ones to rank the 3 teams, and that will be the definitive ranking.
That's the definitive ranking forever. Nobody's beaten Dunk City. I still have a T-shirt of theirs.
That's what I was about to say. Is we were walking around the hallways of our high school, and Brad's out here in a Dunk City T-shirt.
I had to do it.
Kids were like dyeing their hair. It was
crazy. Hell yeah. Yeah, it was a movement. All right, Tyson. Before we get out of here, let's it's money making time, baby. Sweet 16. I'm not gonna lie. Last time we were on here, I had a bad couple picks here. I mean, I had the Georgia State against Gonzaga, but obviously Kentucky minus 18 rolling by, that didn't go so well. Them flying into the Final Four, that didn't go so well. Missed up on a few of these here, but I think I got a good handle on some of these games now, Tyson. This is where I'm locked in a little bit. I'm going to start my first one off here with where is it? I just lost it. Villanova minus 5 against Michigan. Love Nova in this spot. There's just nothing that Michigan that I think can do that makes Villanova uncomfortable enough where I don't think they roll by Michigan. What I'm nervous about is a little bit is on the defensive side for Villanova, how they match up with the size of Dickinson. But I don't know how Dickinson and Sidibe Sidibe, I believe, or what, the other big guy on Michigan, I forget his last name now, how they match up on their defensive end. Because Villanova is going to spread you out, attack you, ball screen cuts, back cuts. I think it's going to be tough for them. And it may not have to even worry about Hunter Dickinson too much because he may be in foul trouble in this one. But I love Villanova minus 5. That's my first pick of the Sweet 16.
Did you hear Dickinson say, they asked him what team from the Big Ten Villanova reminds him of, and he said they're kind of like a more disciplined Iowa. But he's about to find out the massive difference. Yeah, between there's the discipline. Yeah, that word is for real. I'm gonna do something a little different here today, and okay. I'll cruise through. But it wouldn't be right if we went through this whole tournament and I didn't do a crazy 8-leg parlay.
No, it wouldn't be
right. So here's what we're going straight money line parlay.
Okay,
we're taking we'll start in the West. We're going Gonzaga.
Okay,
we're going Duke, even though I really don't want to. I do think that they're just so talented, like high end talent.
And that win felt like they got a monkey off their back.
Yeah, it really did. It felt like Michigan State looked like they took their heart with 2 minutes left to play or something like that, and then Paolo Banchero came down the court and
the Jeremy Roach hit that dagger. Oh man,
he was the best player on the court for the last 10 minutes. He's huge. And then I'm going Houston.
Let's go.
Moving to the South. I do think Houston gets it done. I said it in our tournament preview that the first really good rebounding team Arizona runs into, they're going to lose.
I'm taking Houston as well. So I'm hopping on that one.
I mean, they're just it's too. This happens every year. It's a pretty boy about to get punched in the face. I like Houston. I'm taking Villanova as well for pretty much the same reasons you said. Plus, just better coached.
Money line or -5?
Oh, these are all money lines.
Oh, these are all money line. Okay.
Money line parlay here. Kansas, I picked them to win the tournament. Nothing has changed my mind since then. Remy Martin has been a star.
Yeah, he has.
So far this tournament. I'm going Miami over Iowa State. Like I mentioned, talking about them, just the guard play is just unreal. And I think people were slow to catch on. I think North Carolina gets it done against UCLA.
Oh, okay.
That one,
it feels like it's North Carolina's time.
It does. And I think that Johnny Juzang and those guys taking so long to get started is going to cost them. It hasn't cost them yet.
Right.
But nobody's jumped out the gates like North Carolina in this tournament, and I think that it's kind of a perfect matchup for them in that sense. And then we're going Purdue.
Okay.
Big
boy.
You got to.
You got to. I love it.
Good luck fitting that one on the bottom.
Yeah, put that thing on the bottom. What are the odds of that?
Oh, I haven't even put it together yet. I'll do that real fast.
All right, put that together. I'm gonna close mine out since you ran through it. I love that idea though, Tyson. So I'm obviously, like I mentioned, I'm on Villanova -5 for the first one. I'm on Duke money line as well. They're 1 point underdog. I'm gonna just take a money line. I think they're gonna win. Odds are -102 on FanDuel. I'm taking Houston money line +105, and then I'm gonna take Miami money line -140. I think they're gonna get that done as well, as kind of for the reasons that we went through, Tyson. And then here's one: Arkansas Gonzaga. I'm taking under 155. I think that's an astronomical number there. I'm a little worried that, like you mentioned, the Gonzaga's been able to push that pace a little bit because Arkansas can get up and down. I think it'd be in their best interest to slow this game down a bit and limit possession. So I'm going to take a flyer on, I think Musselman's going to want to slow this thing down under 155 in Gonzaga, Arkansas.
We're at plus 33.31.
Love that.
3,331. $20 for 667, something like that.
Love that. As you always say, you don't go to Subway for 2 days and put it on this little ticket here and you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly. Just skip that coffee, man.
Yeah, skip that coffee, skip that lunch, skip that dinner, and just ride with us here in money making time.
Put it all here, and then eventually you'll have money to pay it off.
Exactly. Then you'll have money to buy it. Basically, you have your private chef. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Tyson, huge show we had to get through today. Always a pleasure chatting with you. I mean, NFL continues to dominate, man. I mean, it just doesn't go away. And we love it. I mean, we love talking NFL, so we're going to have a lot more to discuss, obviously, as we get closer. NFL draft stuff coming up, but it's still March Madness. We still had to run through Sweet 16 preview and give our picks out. Hopefully that baby hits, especially because we're on a lot of the same sides. But, man, I can't wait to get back into it tomorrow. It was honestly nice having a couple days off. I took full advantage of not watching sports. I'm not going to lie to you. But it's going to be nice to get back into the thick of things here.
Oh, man, I had Jacob deGrom started yesterday for my Mets. I had to watch 2 innings of spring training baseball. So, yeah, it's going to be nice getting back. I'm always pissed for the first, probably day and the next morning maybe. And then it's like, oh, man, I can't wait for this. And then it turns to excitement.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So it's just the way it goes. But, yeah, I think this might get a little funky.
Well, as long as Duke's there at the end, that's all that matters. So we'll see. We'll talk to you next week. We'll be having the Final Four. We'll still be chatting about it. I'm sure we'll have more NFL news to talk about, or at least something crazy happens in the NBA as we get closer to playoff time. We got you covered here on the roundtable. So, Tyson, pleasure as always. Like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Follow us on all those social medias. Obviously, the roundtable @_ the roundtable pod _ me on Twitter @BWakai, Tyson on Instagram @Tyson Gentry. Until next time, everybody. Peace.